A couple years ago, I was fed up with empty Warzone content. Everyone was chasing the new meta and ignoring what I thought was way more important. So I set out to build new gamesense improvements. Breaking down my own games, I discovered the hidden tactics that were absent from my decision-making. Piece by piece, I reconfigured how I play the game. And before I knew it, the SitRep channel was born. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's situational report. Today we're going to be dropping into duos to do my favorite gamesense test. We are going to be breaking down a no-death, high-kill victory where we analyze our decisions throughout the course of the entire game. I'm going to be breaking down the balance of the stop and go mechanic, or balancing the aggressive and the patient playstyle, and we are going to focus heavy on how to know when to push and then how to properly evade threats while still absorbing information. In order for this test to be effective, you need to land somewhere hot. I like prison because it gives lots of opportunities for you to improve your awareness as well as multiple angles of gunfights. Once you get yourself an SMG, you need to be pushing the information as fast as possible. Intel is the most valuable thing that you can take in any gunfight, and the faster you use that information, the more effective you will be. Make sure we have players on the roof and that we already have an SMG. We come across a brand new loadout box. Seeing that we already have enemies on the roof, we are not focusing on overlooting. We are pushing the information before it disappears. We're using our cover as we slide out into the open and pushing towards that information. Using self-control to not fire upon enemies until you have a clear shot. Always focus on the air and make sure that you have the best position. When you're found by an enemy, you don't forget to use your self-revive, but plan your escape. If you get audio cues on the right-hand side, be prepared to take the smartest exit away from that gunfight. It is very alarming for enemy players to try and find you and gives you the ability to control the situation should they want to push. Once you lose your teammate, you need to be prepared for the most important part of this exercise, which is controlling the resurgence timer. You don't want to push back out and get yourself in a bad position because you may lose the game. Prioritize getting them back and then re-push your fight. Do not get overly aggressive for your first knock because the entire point of the duo exercise is to train your brain how to engage the next player. And if you don't have good positions, you need to continually cycle through using your escape tactics as frequently as you can. Communicating your knock to your duo is very important. You will encounter more teams along the way, which is the beautiful part about duos because of the increase in teams. In fact, there were 22 teams on the map when we started, which is another great part about this exercise is you have to be aware that you will be third-partied quite a bit without the resurgence pings once you kill. When you're pushing more than one enemy at the same time, you need to take smarter fights from different angles so that you do not become victim to the third party. We are acting on the bounty information, pushing up towards that. We have engaged this duo potentially 3 times now. We are continually using the cover and concealment method. We're not over pushing, we're using our height advantage, and then once we have cracked a player, we are pre-aiming doorways and windows, preparing for them to re-challenge. Make sure you're acting to our footstep audio cues. We don't have one, and we don't want to rezip to the roof because we don't know if they're waiting. Remember, they have my location from killing my teammate. New audio cue, pull out into the open and aggressively take down that player, remembering that there's likely another team above, but we're going for the push because our teammate is back. Observing fly-ins is another critical part to managing multiple enemy teams. It is very important to manage those cover points so that you don't get pinched in the open. One of the bigger skill sets that I try to learn from this exercise is how am I vulnerable to multiple enemies, and then how do I protect myself while still being aggressive enough to rotate into new points of cover and get my kills. You can push your break and your knocks, but what you don't want to do is chase after one kill and then get yourself immediately taken out. Once you thirst, use that opportunity to rotate up, but use lines of cover in places for you to gather visibility to thirst those kills. Elevation and information, we talk about it in every video. Another great advantage with going to somewhere like prison is you are taking advantage of your elevation. When you don't have a UAV and you don't have a resurgence ping, this is the most efficient way to find more targets. Surface sounds are extremely valuable. Just the tapping on metal alone, I could tell immediately where the player was based on the noise that was coming through my headset. Target prioritization is even more important. When you're engaging a player and you see a new threat that is actually facing you, you want to be ready to take out that new threat. You also need to be prepared. This is where I talk about directional defense. You need to stay locked into the 360-degree compass that is around your reticle. I am fighting an enemy on the ledge and I am juking backwards off that ledge, and then immediately we take fire from behind. So you need to react in the direction that is opposite of that gunfire. And if you are fast on your feet, you can get away from some very, very aggressive players that way. It is so critical that you stay in tune with multiple fights. And I'm not comfortable pushing that based on the fact that the teammate lost the fight. They will hear the zip. The enemy has my location from the ping of thirsting my duo, and they would hear the audio cue of me zipping up. We get an audio cue of the player on us. We're able to take them out, and our duo is back. Not only do we get our duo back, but we get the reactionary of that enemy as they drop down, asking the duo if the loadout is safe, and then telling them we're returning to the top of prison. Move your free look stick directly on the horizon of those hotspots. Before you take a pass out into the open, you want to be scanning to see who is already sentryed up to hold your position. Take shots from cover. Make sure you're pre-aiming, pre-firing, and using the rotational aim assist by moving the left stick. If you're unsuccessful in dropping a fly-in, do not stand in the same position, especially if that fly-in lands on an elevated position above you. Play your buy station, get yourself a streak, or rotate to a different position to do a counterattack. No confirmation that they were killed or left the tower. Make sure you're taking advantage of the fire sale buy. You need to be getting your free self and preferably a streak to thirst to kill or hold yourself off from a power position. Verticality, once again, we're getting information just by simply being in the air. Multiple fly-ins. When you push towards an enemy, you want to clear top to bottom. Use your short range when you are pushing. Make sure your advantage when you're pushing an enemy from top to bottom is you can take advantage of lower profile sound cues. In other words, instead of running all the way across the room and down the steps and giving several indications of your position, if you jump over railings or through a window down to the bottom level, there is far less audio cues and you'll get more of a bone crunch when you drop instead of the metal pinging of walking down steps. This can be incredibly big brain and how to push more aggressively without giving away your position. Pre-aim, pre-fire, and then always move after a kill and gather that resurgence ping. Once you get the ping of where they are located, you communicate that to your teammate. Surface sounds and holding your power position is extremely important in taking care of those dots. Paying attention to the directional arrows on your resurgence pings so that you can give the most accurate information for your teammate who did not get the ping. Live pinging also helps with retaining that information. Pay close attention to your circle and then look at where you should be in that circle. You never want to be in the low end. You always want to be towards the middle or high ground of your circle so that you have the most potential in the fight. There's a lot of scenario-based decisions that you can make about your position, but in general, the higher ground position wins for visibility purposes, but we're going to talk about how high ground can come back to bite you here in just a moment. Make sure you're paying attention to those fly-ins and learn to track and use your rotational aim assist to take them out. There are free kills that are coming in throughout the course of the game. Once you have information, once again, on your minimap, you need to be taking the fastest way to that elevation and then start to clear through your circle sweep. Using self-control until you have a clear shot is very important. The streaks that we had in pocket to clear that position to openly protect against players that want the same thing. You have to be careful when you're on high ground, though, because you are a high-value target for players that are rotating in. So you have to pick your target wisely. Be ready to hot swap that weapon and take out enemy fly-ins so that you don't get landed on. Sweep around the outside. Follow those pings. We know there are people below us because we can hear them. So we want to look at the circle and start to lay out the groundwork of how we're going to get in zone and how we're going to stop other people from getting in zone. Another valuable piece of when you're holding the power positions is you need to know exactly how many avenues a player has to get to your position. So we know we have a left zip here. We have a right stairwell. We have the scaffolding to our 2 o'clock position, and we also have the ladder behind me. But not a lot of people realize, but there is a ladder between cafeteria window and the AC directly to my right. So we're managing those 4 locations and clearing out players so that we can narrow down how many people we have to rotate with. We have an open circle between prison roof and the zone. Now, this is where I say that elevated power positions in the endgame do not always work well, because if a team is already in zone on the low ground, they can catch you flying or dropping down, which can leave you extremely vulnerable. You need to think about that aggressively. But right now, we need to deal with the players that we know are still in prison. And if they're in the clinic, then we know that they have to come out the window facing the buy or on the scaffolding itself. I'm checking last known position on that dot, and we're getting streaked, which is a great play to control our descension into the courtyard. I'm going to zip back towards the opposite side, and we have made it just to the tip of the circle, which is where it's time for us to gather the circle slide. Circle slide is in our favor. If it was pulling downhill, we would rotate more towards the outside and try and get ahead of the pull. I am still getting a red dot on the minimap in prison, which is an immediate threat to me being on this wall. Make sure you immediately neutralize that threat, counter enemies, see the tracer gunfire, and we're reacting to see if we need to help, mantle up on the ledge, and stay in cover in case we can't hit our shots. And we're gonna thirst the last player in the lobby. Using this level of patient decisiveness is going to improve your overall game sense. If you're overly aggressive and you're pushing out in the open, you are going to get third-partied a lot in duos. And I highly recommend you try this out. If you really want to turn up the sauce, you can go into duos alone. And that will really crank the necessity for you to play more carefully. If you want to win the game and you want to have higher kills, you're going to have to balance that patience, though, with some solid aggression. So I highly recommend you use this exercise to make you a more well-rounded player. Like I always say, keep building, keep adapting. SitRep out.